So my name's, I go by Todd now, so those of you that know me, Brandon, it's probably a little confusing, but my name is Todd. I work with a company called Insight. We're fairly new. Well, the company's not new. We've been around actually since 2014, early 2014. As a matter of fact, I think we were here before. It was called Logkiller, which is the world's worst name ever. So they spent a long time trying to get that fixed, and they finally were able to change it to at least a reasonable name. So Insight is the name of the company, and the name of the product is called Layer 8. And you can see our tagline is bridging the gap between IT and end users. We're like a lot of companies that you're probably familiar with, in the fact that we're in the monitoring space in regards to the user experience space, trying to tell you what your user experience is like. We're called Layer 8 because we are at the user experience layer. That's kind of the whole point of the product. I will say before we go any further, this one, just because I like to really irritate Alex, is going to be completely not technical. So I have two sessions. This one is actually, I will get into some technical stuff. This one's not going to be as technical. I do have one, I think, tomorrow sometime. That's another 30 minutes that's going to be strictly technical. But I figured it would be difficult to have a technical conversation about a product that you've never heard of or don't know anything about. So I figured I'd spend the first 30 minutes just kind of telling you what we are, kind of our mindset, why we do what we do, and why we think our approach is a little different. And then tomorrow we'll have our like a technical session. And to entice you guys to come tomorrow, I will be giving away 2 E2E Rome passes. So I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to give them away. It's probably just going to be like a jar with cards or something. I like that.
With an octopus.
Yeah, we have an octopus. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and get started. So what I'll do is I'll do a little bit about our company and all that kind of stuff. I'll leave the last 5 or 10 minutes for questions. I'm sure you're going to have tons. So our approach is a little different. Kind of the way I like to talk about it is you have, someone was earlier talking about eternity, right? You have eternity, when you talk about client side, you have eternity. Talk about server side, you have stuff like app DNA, right? That's kind of like full APM space. It's like full profiling of applications. It's very, very, very useful, but normally very heavy on the agent side, meaning it has a significant impact on the agent. It's a lot of data, and they're almost always astronomically expensive from a cost perspective. They're super powerful, and they do give you some really good data. And then you have like the other end of the spectrum is what I would call pure machine data, right? And the pure machine data would be like perfmon, like if you were to go from that. So there's kind of like this spectrum of going from pure machine data to full APM. You have some really cool products out there. Uber Agent is one of them. You have Control Up. They all fall on this line somewhere in between pure machine data to APM data. We wanted to focus more. So most products kind of approach this spectrum, what we call from the bottom up, meaning they start with machine data and they ascertain what the user experience is based on what the machine data tells them. We're taking a completely different approach in regards to we're starting from the user's perspective, and then we throw in machine data to try to add color and flavor to what the user is seeing. And you'll see that, I'll go into detail with that on the technical side. But in basics, that's kind of what we do. So we call it visibility from the outside in. So if you were to kind of visualize it, it's like you have a user looking at a computer screen. So you have the user on the outside, and then you have the computer screen, and then you have the applications that are there, and then those applications are sitting on physical resources like CPU, memory, disk, all the way down to the network layer. That's kind of how that visibility works. So we're looking at it from we're trying to look at it from what the user would see. Funny enough, you said duct tape. Because of the way that we collect this data, by the way, as I'm talking, if you have a question, feel free to stop and ask. But it has many uses, like duct tape, meaning that the way that we get the data You can actually use it for efficiency applications in your business. You can use it for compliance. A lot of forensics information. We collect a lot of data that helps significantly with forensics issues. And vendor management in regards to making sure vendors do only what vendors are supposed to do, and not any more than that. This is probably where I'll spend the most time. So this is kind of what Layer 8 in action, what Layer 8 is like in action. So it starts with endpoints. So we have an agent, like most monitoring products. I mean, there are a few, I think there's only really one company out there right now that tries to do this job agentless. But even they are kind of coming over to you really can only get this data with agents. Trying to get it off the wire is not always going to work. There's a lot of data that's just not there. So we have agents that are deployed. The agents get deployed, we collect all the user's data at the agent, and then we send it up to other operational data. So the reason why we clarify other, we are currently, the product is built for any big data system. So you can send it to Hadoop, you can send it to Elastic, you can send it to any kind of database you want. If you want to use SQL, whatever database you want, you can use any backend that you want to use. We don't care. But I love Splunk. I used to work for Splunk. So the way that we expose the data, so there's two parts to data, right? There's the getting the data, collecting the data, and they're storing the data somewhere else and getting the value from the data. So you can store the data wherever you want. If you want to store it in Elasticsearch or whatever, that's fine. The way that we illustrate the value of the data is using Splunk. Splunk's got really powerful search mechanisms. It's got all kinds of analytics that will do, the statistical analytics, things that will make Jim well happy for days in regards to coming up with weird ways of doing statistical random. Anyway, so what we do is we send our data to those backends, and we allow you to enrich that data with other bits of data. For example, Uber Agent. So with our product with Uber Agent, you'll get a lot more value because you can actually correlate what we're seeing with what Uber Agent's seeing. You could also do it with Control Up, or you could do it with any of those products, Login BSI. Any of those products, our data will enrich what they're doing, and you can have them in a central repository. If you don't want to pay for another product, you can use, the Windows TA for Splunk or whatever data collector. If you want to use SCOM or whatever, it doesn't matter. We don't care. But we like to enrich that not only with performance data, like machine data, but we also like to enrich it with SIM data or other security-related data or networking data. Anything that will make the, what I call the full stack easier to understand and easier to pinpoint where the issues are. Kind of like when Control Up was talking about doing the hypervisor down to the Zen desktop. We're trying to get the stack, everything in the stack. We'll extend that stack all the way to the application layers. At that point, we're agnostic, right? For the first three, for these first three things, we're agnostic in regards to you don't have to use Splunk, you can use whatever backend platform here. When we get to this part, we have basically, like I said, Splunk's powerful. There's already a UI built in. We didn't want to have to go hire a bunch of UI developers and have to do database developers and all that stuff. So we just built on top of Splunk from the UI perspective. Does that make sense? Similar to what Helga does with Uber Agent. So we create those dashboards, and then those dashboards with the color data that we get from here allows you to see whatever blind spots that you might have in your infrastructure, enabling greater efficiency, compliance, forensics. Those four things we talked about before. Any questions so far? Some of the things that we're looking at, so these are things that when this slide was created, it was actually a little bit farther down the line, but we're actually pretty close to a new release. And then the new release, we're going to actually add some other stuff, such as diagnostic data. One thing I didn't mention is our data footprint in Splunk is like nothing. It's less than a meg per user. And y'all know about Splunk. You pay by data ingress, right? So how much data you collect on a daily basis directly impacts how much Splunk costs you. So that number is very important when you're using that as a backend platform. So from our perspective, we want to keep that as minimal as possible. So in our current footprint, it's less than a meg per user, which means that you can get 500 users, or I wouldn't push it to 500 because that's pretty close, but like 475 users on free Splunk and not have to pay anything. So you just have to pay for the agent. What we're adding in the new revision is the ability to do diagnostic data. So in such case that we find an issue or you meet some kind of thresholds that are set by you, we have some preset ones that you can change those to whatever you want. If it meets a threshold, what it will do is it will capture more data during a time period, send that to the end, and then once that period's over, it stops. So you're not collecting, tons of data all the time to catch that one little 5-minute window where something broke. So we're doing that. We also we're implementing client-side analysis and alerts. These are all optional. You don't like if you want all the data, we'll give you all the data. The client-side analysis and alerts are think of it as like rules or configuration that you can send to the agent that allow it to do some analysis of the data before it posts it back to Splunk. So, or whatever backend you use, it doesn't have to be Splunk. And that's also a potential huge saving. Even a meg, when you're talking about 300,000, 400,000 users, gets expensive. So we want to be able to help you guys as best as possible to reduce that data footprint. We're also looking at doing a standalone Layer 8 server component, which would relieve the need for Splunk at all. So it would be its own little standalone product. And we're also looking at doing data collection from mobile devices as well. If you know anything about mobile devices, that's a harder thing to fight. But most of this stuff is already actually done. The mobile devices is still in progress. Any questions about that? I'm expecting questions about that. I already touched on this. How do I get a free chance or a chance to win a free pass? So just come to my session tomorrow sometime. I should probably know that. I will show up, but sometime tomorrow. I think it's in the afternoon. Alex knows me. I'll get up. Oh, I lied. It's 10 o'clock on Saturday. Yes, sir.
Are you going to explain exactly what you mean by enterprise user data, the type of data it's going to collect?
Yeah, so I wasn't done. So
okay.
The last thing I'll do, I was going to actually show you, I can't get into all the dashboards, but I wanted to show you like the startup dashboard. It'll make more sense in a second. Anyway, so this is what the dashboard looks like when you start it up. I'm on a MacBook Air with less than 4 gigs of RAM, running a virtual machine and a bunch of stuff. So the search is really slow right now, but on a real Splunk, it's actually very fast. It's all accelerated and all that stuff if you know anything about Splunk. But this is basically the first report you get. And the key pieces of data that you would need to look at is what we call user experience rating. And basically, this is the amount of time, based by percent, that the user has spent waiting for applications to do something. Right? So obviously, the higher the number, the worse it is. And you can actually change it to where it goes red, yellow, and all the different colors you want. So that's a real good indication of what's going on from a user's perspective. How much time are they wasting waiting for applications to do things? Does that make sense?
So are you measuring then from the interface perspective? Somehow are you looking at the interface to determine when it actually displays and is actionable?
That's what our agent really does.
Okay.
It captures all the applications that are running. We do this for all the Windows native applications, but we also do it for Chrome, Firefox. We tell you all the you'll see down here. It's not very clear, but you'll see it down here is all the URLs and the amount of time that the users were on those and how long those we'll record how long did you sent when you sent a request, how long that initial request took to come back, and how long did the complete request take to come back. So we collect all that kind of information. We also do log delays. This is one of the places where having raging data is also helpful. We can tell you log delays and how much time it's costing you across your environment for a user and also for your entire environment. But if you wanted a breakdown of actual logons, that's where you want data from like a raging or control log or something like that. And so this is application delays. So you can see right here for your environment, your users have spent a total of 19 hours collectively waiting for applications. Login delays is 6.31 hours. Web loading is 3.27 hours. And the one on the end is just how much data we index. So, I mean, but that's pretty good perspective. Like, so this is 2 weeks of data, and we've recorded only 259 megs of index data, which is really small. So this is just basically a data set summary. So this will tell you how many users were indexed, how many hosts, how much data was indexed, that kind of stuff. Your average user experience rating for that day. So these are days. And then the activity hours that were wasted for that day. And then this is just kind of a same kind of thing, but just visually different. Some people like to look at data different ways. So in this particular case, we allow you to see the log, line delay, web delay, your user experience rating, and your warning level. The other thing, because we're built on Splunk, the other thing we can do that's really cool, and I'll show this to you tomorrow or Saturday. You can come see me tomorrow too if you want. But what I'll show you is we do 2 things. You can set a threshold. Let's say for logon. Let's say my threshold for logon is like 120 seconds. If you set your threshold for logon 120 seconds, we'll let you know anything that exceeds that. But on top of that, we'll also give you a secondary statistic, which is what is your typical logon average? Where's your, I don't know about standard deviation because that's not the right term. I'm sure Jim can call it whatever it's supposed to be called. It's basically almost like a standard deviation of all your logons, what their average mean is of a logon time. So we'll show you where that is as well. So you can see if a user is, if your average logon time is 60 seconds and you have one user that's doing 70 or 80 seconds, then rather you're above the 120 second threshold is irrelevant. You have a user that's exceeding the threshold, what your standard for your normal users. So there's something different about that. It may not be an issue, but it's at least something you need to look at. And we'll do this for not only logons, but you can do it for applications, and you can do it for websites, and all kinds of things. This concept was actually a big game changer for one of our customers due to a web application they were using that they didn't understand why some users were complaining, other users weren't complaining. It turned out to be a geographical issue. But they could tell by the grouping that it was a geographical issue, and then they were able to figure it out. And the web backend, the SaaS application wasn't using zoning properly or something. Well, I don't know where I'm at on time, but if there's any other questions, I was going to show you this down here too. So this right here are your most used web cloud resources. It'll tell you, this is the user experience time, the active time, and the number of new users. And this is all the URLs that were used. Yes, sir.
But at the start, you mentioned that the tool's got some forensic capability. Is that correct?
Yeah, so when I say, yes, it does. The data has forensic capabilities. Meaning, so I guess you have to think about it, right? So we're recording every application that a user is using, how long they're using that application, what windows in that application they're using, same with the browser. So we can very easily reconstruct a user's activities.
Have you ever been?
You can do it for your kids.
So, have you ever been in a kind of litigation situation where you've had to prove that the data is correct? Because obviously you're recording something, but then in a litigation scenario you have to prove what you're recording is correct. So just
I can say we're able to do that. Outside of that, I don't want to. But I just explained how, right? Is we can give you a full trace of what that user has done. And this can be used for HR purposes, it can be used for forensic purposes. I mean, it's not necessarily that the user was malicious or anything that the user was doing was bad. It could be that you found out there was a virus that was exposed at some point in time, and you know, I mean, most products will tell you the PC it came from, but that's the end of their insight. They don't know anything else. We can take that to the next level and let you know, okay, these were the applications that were going, and this was what else was going. And with the next release, we're actually going to be able to do full, not network capture, but net stat. Like all the connections that were like a trace route type thing, all the stuff that's kind of coming on from that perspective as well. So it's like currently, that's probably the only piece that we're missing in the current product, but that's already resolved. We just haven't released. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
You look, I mean, it doesn't look like it.
No, I'm just interested because forensic, you know, if you look at tools, I've done a little bit of work in the cloud space and this, and the things I've found, you know, it's very difficult to prove that things are actually happening. You know, you can say that they've happened, but then actually, you know, if you...
Well, I mean, outside of we don't have a camera recording the user at the desk, you know, I can't say that user X was sitting at the PC at a given time. I mean,
no, but the thing
I
is,
suppose you could, but that would be...
No, but that isn't the point. The point is if you were in a case, if there was a litigation case, I guess that's why we've got discovery tools, because they're able to prove at another level what's actually happening. So I can say for a fact, I've worked with a number of cloud tools where operations are actually being performed, but they're not actually logged in the correct way. So, you know, timestamp, and that's just going to kill the case, because you have to prove what you're doing is correct. So I was just interested. I'm not saying it doesn't.
Oh, no. So what I would say, like my answer is, I believe we can do that, and I believe it would hold up. What I will say as a qualifier to that is not alone. Like I wouldn't sell our product as a forensic product solely, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It adds a lot of color and a lot of flavor to other bits of data that make the picture more complete and filling in a lot of gaps that a lot of places are missing. But I wouldn't say it's a complete forensic. I wouldn't go and sell it as, like I wouldn't go to you know, a security conference and sell it as a forensic product and expect to get away with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm something I'm not. Any other questions? I gotta be close to 30 minutes. So this is just application alerts for users and log into latest display domain. All of this stuff, by the way, is I have 5 minutes. All of this stuff, by the way, is click-throughable, if that's a word. And you can actually get a lot more data by clicking through and getting a drill down. I don't know what data is actually there right now because this is all on my laptop. But, all of this stuff is click-throughable, and you can actually get more details on specific things with the UX. And then each one of the dashboards, you'll see at the top. And we'll go through these in detail on the other day. So you can do metric analysis. There's these different reports, user summary, user activity summary, all that kind of stuff. All right, any other things? That's all the things. All right, I'm done.